Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1, I believe is the official title of the batch of episodes that dropped last week. Stranger Things is finally here. My name is Grace Leeder, but of course, I am not alone. Here with me, a member of the Hellfire Club as well. It's Mike Bloom. How you doing, Mike?
I am thrilled to be here, Grace, as someone who covered Stranger Things in detail back when post-show recaps was a thing. RIP. I'm happy to be sort of like the proverbial Max, as it were, and I
Yes.
won't go into further details behind that until maybe a little bit of a chunk into this podcast.
Yes. We Taryn and I did a Tastemakers pod today, and the title of the episode is "Stranger Things Took Too Long," which I think we mean it's been a long time coming. Mike, I guess it's been 3 and a bit ish years.
Yeah,
A bish is a bit plus ish years since the last season of Stranger Things. That feels like a long time. It feels like somehow like not that long, but also it's a long time since we've had Stranger Things on Netflix. How are you feeling, just generally, Mike?
about Stranger Things. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, I think that. Listen, to your point about the amount of time that has passed between seasons, nowhere is that more indicative than the lovely faces and bodies of our strapping young lads at the center of this,
Mhm.
considering that, like, some of them are probably old enough to rent cars at this point. Millie Bobby Bonjovo, I believe her new last name
Mhm.
is, had a whole freaking child in between Stranger Things seasons. I know it's been a meme of like the number of shows that have come and gone in between seasons 4 and 5 of
Yep.
Stranger Things. I mean, they sort of, I think, patented a model that we were not particularly used to and now really is common within the streaming universe, which is this idea of not putting a season out every year. Like, obviously, when we talk about the salad days of Netflix, when it was really sort of the Wild West, the punk rock of like, we're not doing commercials, you can put on whatever you want to at any point in time. We have an endless catalog. You know, you think back to House of Cards, you think back to Orange is the New Black, but Stranger Things, I think, was incredibly essential to the success of Netflix early on. And so it is pretty wild to be able to like look back, and obviously season 5, without spoiling too much, does do a lot of navel gazing back at season 1, but it's wild to think about not only where we have come in nearly 10 years, where the show has come in nearly 10 years, where Netflix has come in nearly 10 years, and where a lot of these people have come in 10 years, which is usually puberty and then some.
Yeah, I definitely think Stranger Things is the thing that sort of like gives Netflix a bit of like a meteoric rise. It's the thing that I think becomes like the most monoculture-y thing that probably Netflix has done in the streaming era has done. I think probably Squid Game is
Mm-hmm.
as close as you can get, and even that because of how quickly that sort of has been out. Like that finished in between all of this. I mean, only did it do two? It did 3 official seasons, or did 2 with 2 parts in the part?
It was
How many
it
seasons
was
of?
billed as 3, but it was essentially 2 and 3 were billed as they were sort of, it was 2 seasons
That's
of
right.
7 episodes each.
That's right. So yeah, it feels like, Stranger Things, especially that first season, just so quickly became a thing that everybody had watched and people were watching. And it came back, I think, basically the next year. And then it starts to just have this slow time between seasons. Um, all that to be said, I hear it and I see it when you watch the show and you're like, yep, those children look like old, they look old.
Yeah, it's
Uh
getting a little like Wet Hot American Summer-esque, where it's like, these are clear
Perfect.
adults wearing
Uh-huh.
children's clothing.
But at the same time, I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed myself watching the 4 episodes that we've gotten so far. I said this, we will not do we won't do that long non-spoiler y, but my
Mm.
general thoughts are like this was so fun to go back. I definitely feel like I wish I had done my rewatch. Like I wish I had finished it. I tried to start. I feel like everybody was kind of feeling like they would do it. A lot of people I know stalled out in season 2, which I don't even think season 2 is that bad. It's just that I
Uh,
think compared to season 1,
according to Rotten Tomatoes, it's the second highest rated season of Stranger Things ever, which is quite a take.
season
I know
2?
he likes it cold, but that is a hot take. Yeah.
Whoa. Fun. Interesting. So, like, I feel like, and Taryn said this a little bit, of feeling like as he was watching that there was a little bit of like trying, like doing some mental gymnastics to be like, oh yeah, that is a thing that I remembered, and that character is not here and that character is and these are over here. There's so much in Stranger Things. It's a very like vast show in terms of number of characters and things like that. So that's like my one piece of advice in terms of like suppose like see if you can find a good recap. I did watch on Netflix. There is a season 4 recap, which I almost wish I did one. Like I wish I did all of them. Like I wish I did a season 1 and season 2, 3, and 4, and then watch season 5 because I think I would have been well served by that. Because the thing about season 4 that I found is it didn't feel like it's a television show. It didn't feel like I think the analogy I made is it didn't feel like I was like suddenly watching Avengers Endgame in terms of it being a final season. I feel like it's like we ramp back up into things. And I think by the end of that 4th episode, I feel like I'm pretty in and I wished there was episode 5. But I feel like it's like, you know, you get reacclimated to it a little bit, like entering the Upside Down, as they may or may not do in season 5, Mike. I feel like it, you know, it
They
takes some
already
time to
did.
get in
They're
there.
already in there. Like half
I
the
know
cast
they
is
are
in there at this point.
I know, but I'm just saying like that's sort of a bit of like the first bit of season 5 is like we're gonna do these like crawls into the Upside Down. So I feel like that's how I feel too. Of like, okay, we're making some progress back in there, and then we'll ramp up. Does that resonate? I don't know if that resonates.
No, I completely co-sign that. I think my overall assessment of Volume 1 would be like, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there wasn't anything next level that kind of blew me away until the last stuff that came in episode 4, which I think makes sense given the structure that they are pursuing. They did this a little bit with season 4 as well, when they were also doing the 3 separate releases, that they had those teases at the end of each one to tantalize the taste buds and keep you going until the next major American holiday, which is when Volume 2 will release. Until then, yes, it was a little bit of reacclimating. At the same time, I think even outside of that, I think even people who binged everything leading up to season 5 would find that things still ran a little long. You know, the long in the tooth aspect does not just apply to the constant age of these cast members, but I think these are episodes that run like, with the shortest one was like 56 minutes. They're really taking their time. There is a constantly ballooning main cast of characters. Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about this time and time again, that the downside of that is that not everyone is going to get great content. I'm sure we can certainly get into it, that not everyone has equally served a great storyline in season 5 so far, or any storyline at all in a couple of cases. And it took a little while for me, at least, to try to like get my hooks into what are we doing? Where are we going here? Like, it felt like things were propulsive and then stopped a little bit for a couple episodes and then were immediately propulsive again. It's like riding the gas and the brake in the car back and forth. But it was fun to be back with these characters. I think there were, when you look at a final season of a show, you would assume that there are a lot of touchstones back to the beginning. That exists in multiple ways here, not only from a plot-based perspective, I think also from a lot of character-based perspectives that I really enjoyed. I mean, it's tough because everyone has made this comparison since we found out that Stranger Things was going to end with season 5, considering the rather morose environment of the show, that like, all right, it's going to go full Game of Thrones and kill everyone off. This is no spoiler. I don't know anything about the future episodes. They are not doing that. Like, Stranger Things is a strictly PG-13 show, basically. Like, hardly any F-bombs are dropped over the course of this. There's some gruesome imagery, but that's the most mature it really ends up getting. So, like, we are living in a world where the vast majority of this cast is going to survive through to the end. I'm not expecting any sort of mass slaughtering of these characters. And so it does take a little bit to kind of chew through what are they trying to do with everybody. But I think the majority of it works, especially when we finally kick it into gear. You know, we finally take the flamethrower and hold it up to the vines as they start shrieking and writhing. We're getting some movement here to finish batch 1, which I think in retrospect may have made the entire like 6 hours of volume 1 worth it. Again, you could pick and choose.
I mean, currently, I mean, this could be subject to change, but I feel like people are really resonating with episode 4 of season 5, which is sort of the cliffhanger before we get batch or volume 2, batch 2 in about a month. It's the highest rated episode on IMDb by a bit. It you know, I will say that could change, but that also has about 40,000 reviews, which is only about 9,000 less then last season's highest rated episode, which I think is
Is it
the
Dear Billy?
it's actually I think episode 7,
Oh, yep, that's another good one.
The
Yeah.
Massacre at Hawkins Lab, is a 9.6, and Dear Billy is a 9.5. And those
Oh,
have 49 and 52,000 things. So yeah, like 10,000 more ratings might like drop it, and it might not be the highest rated, but for now, like it's being like super, super well received. And I thought it was, I just think it like ramped up really well. I think the fact that we are in the last season of the show, you can feel that energy. I think, again, not right away, but by the time we get to the end of episode 4, I do feel like I see that things are happening that I would expect to be happening. I think in line with what you're saying too, which is that not in the way that, in the way that this is sort of like coming of age, and at one point would have just been a children's show had they done it in like 5 years. It still is like Stranger Things. It's still that. But I really enjoyed specifically episode 4, and just what I was sort of like feeling out of it. And there's another thing that I can't really deny, that a lot of that is refocusing back on Will Byers, and that
mm-hmm.
being an LGBTQ storyline that is really resonating with me,
Yeah.
I think. And so I just think it's working for me. So I really enjoyed it. I would encourage people to either like catch and watch it. I had somebody who I work with who was they were like, they like, I told this story today on the Tastemakers. I worked a conference that I worked from about 6 a.m. to at least 7 p.m. every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the shift that I had, and a few other people were running conference. And a staff member came up to me on the Friday, and they said, "Have you watched any of Stranger Things yet?" And I said, "When? When would I have watched it?" But they didn't.
I am
watch.
right now. It's in my glasses.
They didn't watch season 4, and they were like, "I'm loving it." And I was like, I do think that's a little bit of blasphemy.
Wait, that is
Mhm.
insane. Like, we come from
I
the
know.
world of reality TV where it would
I
make
know.
sense to be like, oh, I didn't watch this season, but I'll jump on. They don't start with a new batch of characters. Maybe one. They did recast one particular character that becomes of tantamount importance, but like, that is objectively an insane thing for somebody to do.
Her boyfriend wanted to watch season 5, and she had not yet watched season 4, and they decided to just start with season 5. So, she loved it. She was like, "This is like the best show ever." So, she's gonna love season 4. Anyway, that's not really important. That's so
there's gonna be
but...
so many things they must have had so many questions about. Like, who's that big lumpy guy?
Anyway, shall we spoil Stranger Things?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to spend too much time on the non-spoiler section. I think if you're here, season 5 of the show, it's the final season.
No, we're ripping a hole open right now in the semi-permanent barrier of spoiler warnings, and we're just throwing ourselves in like the Upside Down. Let's talk about the twists and the turns that come with the first 4 episodes of this proper. Hopefully that was enough prologue to have any looky-loos jump out. I would also say to people, there's been a lot of, I think, vacillating opinions, as is wont to do with the internet, where I think some people have really enjoyed the first 4 episodes. Some have really hated the first 4 episodes. I think I speak on Grace's behalf as well when I say, like, check it out for yourself. See what you think. I think Grace and I both, like, lay somewhere probably in between, skewing on positive. So determine your own opinion for yourself.
Let's do it. Let's spoil it. We're fully beyond, as I believe Jess Sterling thought was very gross. We're beyond the flesh wall, Mike. What's the headline of season 4 or season 5, sorry, of Stranger Things Volume 1?
Well, there's Macro and Mike, not Wheeler, Rose stuff. I mean, the biggest thing has to be where it ends. And there's a couple of big cliffhangery places where season 5 volume 1 culminates.
I know, I keep doing this. I don't know why I keep it, because it was 4 episodes, maybe. I don't know.
It could be, exactly. You got your 4s all in a row, but for many reasons, we have to start with the fact that Will Byers, whether glommed onto him or not, has freaking Vecna-esque powers.
I believe at one point does Mike not even tell him that he's basically Vecna? He tells him that. The powering up, the leveling up of Will Byers being...
Wow, he had a really interesting class feat. I don't know why he took that one.
You know what? Let me say, which is I said on the Tastemakers pod today, I do think one of I think this, I've really enjoyed watching it. I do think there are the things about, like, they look old. It's been a long time since the show came out. Like there are all of these things that are sort of like tangential that like I kind of feel like something happened here and I'm just glad we got it. But like
Yeah.
I wish it had been done a little differently, but whatever. This is what we have now. One of my big complaints is like I think there's a huge gulf between the acting abilities of the kids that they cast. And some of them are tremendous and
Yes.
amazing. And some of them I'm like, oh, like, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
We need to get into this because I am bum puzzled, Grace. Of let me just ask straight up, what happened to Noah Schnapp? Like, because season 2, he was the MVP. He
Uh-huh.
was so goddamn good. Like, I remember the scene, which we'll talk about a couple of times now, of, him being tied up when the mind flayers really infected him, and they're trying to sort of like reason with him, trying to bring Will back, telling these personal stories, and he just flies into a literal fever where he's like, why am I tied up? Why am I tied up? Like, he just put everything into that. And usually it's the opposite, right? Where it's like, oh, they're really cute as a kid. And then like when they get into an adult phase, maybe they're not necessarily the most the flexible type of actor. But for whatever reason, like I was speechless, like, to be honest. And maybe, are we trying to retcon this? That like maybe part of this is that Will's feeling weird because he's part Vecna, and that's why he's a little more stilted with his delivery. It could be some of the writing as well, but I was absolutely not jaw agape. That's saying too much, but I was really shocked. Honestly, one of the biggest shockers of these first 4 episodes, being like, "What happened to you?"
Well, like my thing is that I think like I think Noah Schnapp to a degree is a little bit of like he has these moments where I think he's really great. I think actually in the final scene of the like that all rides on him, and I know he's maybe not even in those moments like she's not even talking that maybe this is why it's working for you. It's not talking that much. It's a flashback of a kid who's not him. Like maybe this is maybe
The
this is
best part of Will was when Noah Schnapp was done on screen.
and he wasn't talking and his eyes were glazed over. Like maybe, I don't know, but I think it does work for me. And so, but like there's so many moments leading up where I just feel like he's the most kind of like acting to try to act, and I do honestly think he's just one of the people who's doing the least amount of acting. Like even Finn, I feel like Finn Wolfhard kind of gives off like a little like him and Noah are like kind of giving off similar energy in the show a little bit, but Finn Wolfhard is like directing his own movies and
Yeah.
acting, and he's doing all this stuff, and
He's been a whole ass 2 Ghostbusters movies.
yeah, Sadie Sink is at, and with then being on set with those people. And I just think like, I think this is probably the thing that for Noah Schnapp is probably like hindering him the most. And yet I think I brought this up first because I think he's so crucial. Will is
Yeah.
so crucial to the story here. And I think by the end of the episode, you're like rooting on Will, controlling all the Demogorgons and killing them all. Like it was really cool and badass, and it sort of hinges on him. And it'll be interesting to see sort of like after this moment of where we kind of go from here in terms of like they put a lot. This cast is ginormous, but they've put a lot on Noah Schnapp and Will Byers being like so central to this story. And thematically, I love it. Like
Yeah.
I do love him being the weak little kid who Vecna is sort of overconfident and thinks like he's the kid he can first try all this on and knows it will work, develop, only to have like imbued him with these powers that might be, presumably the end of Vecna by the end of
Yeah.
the season.
And that
End of the
does
show.
recontextualize a lot because, I think there are certainly people being like, was this planned from the beginning, like the Duffers say? But I mean, season 1 does end with Will coughing up a whole ass slug in the sink at the arcade and getting a brief flash to the Upside Down. So, like, they were clearly trying to involve him in multiple ways. And maybe part of it was like, oh, we hadn't seen anyone go to the Upside Down before. So maybe he was just sick from that. We clearly have had everyone
Yeah.
visit the Upside Down like it's, freaking summer home, and they're totally fine. So it became clear more and more as these episodes went on, like, is there something special about Will? And I do
Yeah.
think, this opening scene is something that really did grip me from the very start of this season, because it does indicate that Will, what's interesting to me, Grace, is that yes, he is a central point, but how does this combat the narrative that we've been given for 4+ seasons now of sort of like 11 being the chosen one,
Right.
the chosen one to take down one, as it were. I think Will is going to be playing obviously a very big role, and we're certainly talking about the Callie of it all now getting involved with our powers combined, their own version of Captain Planet. But this does feel a little latent, much like Will's powers.
Um, And the other thing too about Will, in terms of like things that people thought were sort of added late was like the story of him coming out and being gay. And you look, was rewatching the beginning of season 1. It's like it's in there from the very beginning that he is made fun of for that like people have, that they think he might be gay. So like I do think to some degree, I do think I do think in some ways this is probably a little bit what the Duffer Brothers want. And the other thing that I do like about it, and again, I guess I don't know 100% to say like it was always supposed to be Will, but the D&D-ness of it all, I felt like was the thing that for me in the last episode of this batch is the thing that's like certainly working for me. I became a D&D person sort of after Stranger Things, and like
That's
I'm
how
sure
long Stranger Things has been on the air. Grace Leeder
so
became
true.
a D&D person.
It's so true. It wasn't even Stranger Things that really got me. I still sort of, was just yeah.
You're not the only one though. I feel like yes, there was a lot of obviously pop culture lasting power with things like the Christmas lights and the Eggos
Right.
and 11,
Right.
but like one of the other things that low key it got a lot of people into D&D.
Yeah. And so the sort of that aspect of like the characters that they play and the characters they choose, and then that sort of being sort of a theme and motif to the show about this like Will playing a wizard, and the wizards notoriously have like very low HP. They're sort of like these weak little squishy things, but they can become some of the most powerful creatures in the game, and so, or players in the game. I just sort of like that was really resonating with me. Do you feel like in an essence that like you think that like 11 sort of like being like, do you feel like she's sort of like a little bit pushed to the side that you sort of, because I feel like season 4 really delivers on some of the like 11, what's going on with 11, what's the back, like why was
Yeah,
she
well,
taken,
and
we get Henry out of that, and I don't know.
that has been some of my issues with seasons 3 and 4, and it comes with the cost of having such a big cast. Is like you got to keep them separated, otherwise it's just too much of a globule mess, like we saw the Mind Flayer as in that gooey pile
Mm-hmm.
in season 3. So
Yeah.
like obviously we had the much loved Russia storyline, and like we had everyone kind of separated into we had California. It was the most spread
That's
out our
right.
characters were. And this time they work to pretty much do that from the jump now too, right? Because we have in essence, 3 groups operating, and that it's 2 different groups in the Upside Down, and then it's 1 group pretty much above ground. Though I don't know what's going to happen. I'm assuming they were all able to just like get away now. Like the military's been pretty waylaid. No one is going to
Mm-hmm.
necessarily capture them in this moment. And while it does help just divide our attention, it comes at the cost of like, I feel like outside of a couple of scenes and obviously the last moment we get from the Hopper 11 storyline, it's kind of giving me nothing, Grace, which is wild because like 11, as you mentioned, incredibly fundamentally important character. I still think is kind of fated to be the one to take Vecna and or the Mind Flayer down. But she was a little sidelined. As much as she maligned Hopper for sidelining her from the crawl, they kind of sidelined her storyline and got given basically a bunch of like Metal Gear Solid, stealth missions over the course of the Upside Down.
Well, it's interesting because I do think there's a world where this is not that it's it for Will, but this is kind of to some degree like, was this his biggest moment? Because you
Good
can
point,
see
yeah.
the world where the sort of finale-ish moment, and there's been this running thing about how 11's going to need to sort of like gain all the, like the group of people that she's found, that her friends, and sort of like take things from them to probably ultimately potentially be back and have that moment where she faces off with Henry / Vecna and defeats Vecna, but only through the power of sort of like the whole party, and I think you can see that thing where it's 11 with sort of them sort of like out or whatever, they're at least the core friend group. So there's a world where this was the most powerful, like in terms of thematic moment, and it just being about being just a moment for Will. I think there's a world where to think that he will have a one-on-one battle with Vecna. Like I don't know whether that is the thing. Whether that's
No,
actually,
because I
I
think
don't think that's where
also,
they're going at all.
yeah, because
But
I also think season 4 showed that, like, if you're talking about who has beefs with Vecna, first off, get in line. But I think 11 has the longer lasting one, considering that, like, Vecna said that she opened the door and she was the one that sent him to the Upside Down. She made him in a way. So I think that would carry through in terms of story. I mean, Grace, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. Again, I'm not sure how tapped in you are to the wonderfully passionate Stranger Things fan community. Have you heard of the Bylers before?
I've not heard of the bot. You said this to me earlier today, and I am not tuned
Yeah.
into the Bylers.
So the Byler, I'd say subsect, is a part of the community that is very much into the belief and the core shipping of Will and Mike.
Hmm.
Yeah, Byler, right? I think yes, yes, yes. Yeah,
Yeah, their
because
last names. Yeah.
their last names, exactly. They feel like, as obviously as you mentioned, if we got like subtle strokes from Will about his sexuality in the first few seasons, we are outright like scratching with cat claws towards the end here in the conversation with Robin, where I think they did a good job of like intuiting things without intuiting things too much. And there certainly has been some talk about like what they've done with Robin's character, but even she has not been so daft to be like, I am gay and I think you are gay too.
Right.
There was a lot of good implicit stuff in there, and obviously culminates in that beautiful scene with the flashbacks. But I think a lot of people feel that the feeling is mutual and that they are OTP instead of Mike and 11. Do you feel like there's any credence to that?
No, not really. I think that I think that if we were going there, we would have we would we this sh- we would sort of be closer to being there, if that makes sense, in the
Mm,
show right now. I think that this is a show that is not super subtle. Um, the show
yeah.
is pretty, but and again, I look back at I kind of felt like the Will being gay stuff was brought in later once they kind of like oh, that's kind of fun, and it's there right from the beginning. It's there right from, and so I think that we get I don't think we get any sense from Mike that that's like he's queer. I don't really get that. Like I don't think that's the language of the show. I think that it's, and I feel like they would have um they, and then you would set up anything with Mike and 11 not being like, so I don't feel that that's a
Yeah, I
thing.
mean,
Do you,
is it because that Mike and 11 spend so much of Volume 1 pretty much separated? They have like what a scene together before the crawl happens, and then they've been separated since then. And so because Mike's been spending so much time with Will,
and you get that, you obviously get this beautiful friendship that's like
yeah,
the sort of climax of the volume 1 is a little bit like through the power of Mike willing to be friends, like choosing to be friends with
thank
Will.
God he sat down on that swing.
So
Freaking
yeah,
douchebag Derek sat down there. Game over. Will would have been
yeah.
taken long ago.
And I just get only friendship vibes from, I get like power of friendship, like vibes from that. But I'm glad, if it becomes text and not subtext, I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily feel like that's where we're going. We have folks are in the chat. If you want to, people want to comment and leave questions near the end, we might be able to get to some. Fable is providing some great points that there's always going to be a subset of fans who treat their shows and energy to be solved rather than an entertainment product for mass market consumption.
That's the
Which is
difficulty that comes with final seasons in particular, is because
Mhm.
it is a definitive endpoint to the
That's right.
story. It causes, I think, a lot of fans to be like, well, this is the way that they should take this character, and here's my
Right.
evidence to support it. And we have to remind ourselves that at the end of the day, whether we like it or we don't, like, these are in the hands of these specific creatives. They are going to create the ending that they want, not necessarily the ending that you want.
Um, if we stick on Will for a bit and Will sort of like powering up, what did you make of sort of there's so much Will stuff in these first four
Yeah.
episodes. Obviously him realizing that he's sort of like him sort of coming to the realization that he's seeing through these other kids' eyes, which is actually Vecna seeing through their
Yeah,
eyes,
he's
and
sort of
sort
the
of,
antenna. I did like the lampshading of that by being like, wait, are you Vecna or are you the kids? And he's like, kind of both.
kind of both. Um, uh, Obviously all of that being a thing where we're going to eventually have Holly Wheeler but before we get sort of there, Will also gets a lot of content with Robin of getting to see. I just really loved this stuff. I loved that it comes not from Robin actually having like a perfect relationship with
Vicky.
with Vicky. It actually being like there's so much. This felt just so, again, like, the core of the show is so like, kids on bikes, 80s coded, but this, like, I got so much other stuff to do that my girlfriend, like I'm not able to spend time with my girlfriend, like them being in the hospital to steal the benzos, I think, and her like trying to. I loved all of this. I actually really liked it. It maybe feels a little light for like the final season of a show, but it's Stranger Things, I think it's okay. And so all of that, and just the we get like I think at least two sort of like heart to heartish moments
Yeah.
between Will and Robin that I just really loved. Obviously culminating where like he's going to sort of hear her talk about you have to find you within yourself before
Yeah,
you
it's like
anybody else.
I've been searching for someone, and I realized that like if I discovered myself earlier, I'd be a lot more satisfied. I wouldn't have had to find somebody to. And it's interesting because, as you mentioned, it's him reflecting back upon these connections that he made that seem to give him this attitude to believe in himself, to be able to snap the arm bones of Demogorgons at will. Literally.
It's essentially a plagiarized RuPaul. If you can't love yourself, how in the
Yeah.
hell are you gonna love somebody else? But I loved it. I loved all. I really enjoy. Again, like we talked about the problem I have. I know Fable in the chat says like it's perhaps like Noah Schnapp having a deeper register and just kind of like trying to figure it. I just think he doesn't act as much as the other people. But
That's true. Yeah.
I did enjoy the story beats and the plot points that Will gets along the way in terms of this mystery of these other the army of children that Vecna is assembling and
yeah, and I like that as well. Of like, obviously, we see sort of a similar situation with 11. Her entire journey as we bring Callie in is like she was sort of like what she thought was the last one standing of her group of kids that were taken and used for nefarious purposes by a shadowy individual, and now Will is sort of the same thing. He is patient zero. He is Vecna essentially,
Right.
and that he was the first kid assumingly experimented on by this guy and has kind of in a way helped breed all of this chaos. And so it does make sense to kind of put him at the forefront in that way. I mean, just speaking on Robin a bit, because she has been, again, a bit more of a side story, but I do think it's interesting because I've seen a lot of discourse about like whether Robin has been Flanderized, because I mean, the first half of season 3, when we first meet her, she's definitely more of like a Daria type, where she is a
Right.
little bit more of like a deadpan, I'm over this shit. Why am I working at Scoops Ahoy? Why am I dealing with these children? And then like once she gets involved, once she takes that truth serum from the Russians, then we get a little bit more of, as you mentioned, the comic relief. Now, I guess having her fill that role does make sense because obviously we'll get into it. Dustin is very much not the comic relief. I think Steve is not necessarily the like jokey jokester one-liner guy that he has been in previous seasons. So you sort of have to like have that outlet. Murray sort of is, but
that's what I was gonna
he's
say,
also like just a
relief.
creepo depot in general. So like even that kind of comes with some baggage attached to it.
He's laugh at, not laugh with. So
Yeah. So it makes sense to give her some of the lighter material. It didn't necessarily feel out of place, and I think it was measured out. Like again, she's not a complete clownish dingus. Like she has these moments with Will that I think are very also timid for her as well, because like she's not outright mentioning it. This is something that we've talked about in the past that like certainly at this time, yeah, it was only like 40 years ago at this point, but like this type of stuff was still pretty dang stigmatized. They were still using the term gay to mean like weak, to use it as a pejorative. So like, yeah, she would want to keep this. She'd be very nervous about the secret getting out, and her ability to sort of commiserate on her own feelings and to be able to kind of pass on to Will, like, here's what I felt, but also you don't need to feel what I felt. I thought was a really poignant moment.
I mean, and you're not gonna like, it's not really like Stranger Things, but this is the 80s, so you're in the middle of the AIDS epidemic. Like it's like, yeah, super stigmatized to be queer in the 1980s. I feel that like maybe people would like a little more like yeah, like edgier Robin. I kind of like the Rock and Robin thing. She's also like very competent. She's the one like running the radio station and like delivering the codes over. Like I love that. I
And
love
I also
delivering.
liked as well the fact that because we have such a big cast, we have to see mixes and matches of characters. Like
Yep.
because of the California stuff, like Robin and Will never spent the entire season together. This is the first time they're interacting. People have noted Will and Steve Harrington still have never
Yeah.
had a scene together across 4+ seasons of the show.
That's so funny. That's great. I like Robin, and I actually also think Robin is actually a really good example of a particular D&D player who, like, again, if we're like analogy is like this is a D&D show, other players like my character is going to be the most serious human being and like edgy player you've ever met, and then by like 10 episodes, 10 sessions in, it's like we're making fart jokes and we're like, we're just like it's not D&D. It can't be a super serious game all the time, and this is sort of what happens to your like I'm like a cool, edgy character. It's like D&D is oftentimes about the power of friendship and your party coming together, and then you have to love the people you're with. So I like Robin.
What
But
what
I'm
do you
my
what do
Hawk
you
fan as
make?
well.
Have you heard about the popular fan theory that this will end with a pullout of Mike saying "end of campaign" and that this was all one big D&D story?
No, thank you, but like no, I don't want
They, they,
that.
they said they wouldn't do a Game of Thrones ending. They said nothing about a Saint Elsewhere ending.
That's right. It's just like none of it's real. That's not fun. That's
I
so
think
not
that there
fun.
was also some great holes of logic that people poked. Like, okay, so then why did Mike have a whole side story about like his sister trying to get boned by Steve Harrington?
That had to be. I mean, that has to be somebody else, right? Being like, and him being like, no, we're not doing that. We're
No,
not
no,
doing this.
please, Dustin,
Please,
stop talking
yeah,
about that.
please stop rolling for yourself. Yeah. Apparently, the life well lived says that Will and Steve are at the mall together along with everyone else for a minute at the end of season 3.
Okay,
So they
have they ever exchanged lines to each other? Have they ever looked at one another in the eye and spoken to each other?
one time, Steve waved, and Will thought he was waving to him, but then it was somebody else behind him, and it was super embarrassing for Will Byers. That's the close. No, I don't know. Well, I feel like that. I feel like if Will is the most central person in the 4 episodes, I feel like nobody in their Stranger Things fantasy draft had Holly Wheeler is such a key component of the first 4 episodes of the season.
Due in part to the fact that she got like straight up what's her name, Cassie from Ant-Man, right? Like they straight up recast the role, being like, oh, she's gonna be important now. Great. Of course, leads to the always fun floating timelines that exist with the Duffer Brothers, considering that like pretty sure she's supposed to be like 7 years old. Theoretically, like only 4 years have passed over the time in Stranger Things, but I think the Duffers have like retconned a lot of stuff to now make her 10. I still think even Nell Fisher looks a little older than 10. She's like Sarah Plainenthal.
Do you remember when, and this is such a different show, but when Succession in the final season, and everyone was being like, well, the election's on Tuesday, so that must mean it's this date. And then they were like, and I feel like that's how I have to look at the Stranger Things. I have to be like, no, I'm just, it's the time. The time doesn't matter.
Yes, but then there's also other things like, for example, one of the Will home movies-esque flashbacks is him and Jonathan building Castle Byers, and then there is that scene in season 2 that I was talking about, which is like the come back to us, Will, was Jonathan talking about the origin story of Castle Byers, which was it was raining, their dad had just left, they stayed up all night. Cut to what do we see in this episode 4? It's bright as all get out. They're, smiling happily like their father never left them. It felt like 2 very different narratives.
We can pretend that that's like Will's, like imagine, like that's the memory of doing it or whatever. It's fun. And then also I'm like, wow, they look like the ages they were in season 1, but it's 2 totally different actors. It's like whatever. What can you do? What can they do? I don't know. They can't. They don't have time machine. I guess they could. Yeah,
I'm looking on Wikipedia. It's like Luke Kokotek as 12-year-old Will. And it's like Will was 12 years old when he was taken by the Demogorgon. What do you mean 12-year-old Will? Noah Schnapp as 12-year-old Will.
I know. Did you like the like Mr. What's It stuff of like we have like Henry Vecna, like nice mansion, we're locked in the like, did you like this sort of
so this
we had another new kid. What's the new kid's name?
Oh, Derek. Derek Turnbow.
Derek. I kind of like Derek.
I mean, Derek's got a little Cousin Oliver energy to him, where it's like we don't have like Erica has even aged out of that precocious role. So it's like, all right, here's douchebag Derek to redeem himself. So like this is where it lost me a little bit. The Will stuff felt earned, right? Because there
Uh-huh.
was narrative buildup to this. And granted, it turns out at the end that like Holly is more of a conduit. It's not like she is the one specifically. She's one of like assumingly a dozen that Vecna is kidnapping to fill out whatever he's trying to do that Will drew on the wall. We can certainly get into that in a little bit. But it still kind of came out of nowhere. Like, yes, technically, this is someone who's been on the screen since season one, but like, why is she playing such a central role? And I think like nothing against Nell Fisher's performance. Like, I think she's doing a suitable job
I
given the
agree.
material, which is like the character, I guess, is very doe-eyed and innocent. And that's just Holly. She's just a very blank slate of a character because we know kind of nothing of her. And so she's honestly, I feel really bad saying this. I feel like Holly is more of a MacGuffin than a character in these first 4 episodes.
Yeah, I think so too. Life Well Lived says it's worth remembering that Holly had a brush with the Demigorgon when she wandered into Will's room in season 1, which is a good point. I kind of agree, and I think this is a thing where if the kids don't age into teenagers, like, and because like somebody else, great usernames Thanksgiving. I'm presuming
Happy belated celebration to use Thanksgiving.
we are Canadians Thanksgiving is a month ago. But I think that uh it's like there's a D&D thing to this too, where it's like if your big bad evil monster, your big bad evil guy, your BBG is too powerful, why does it just come kill you like when you're weak, but there's part of this where you have to like level up, and so in the show they have to do it, and then they're old, where you could imagine where like maybe some of this was a little more like kids their age,
Yeah.
like where like they might be connected a little more to them, but now just the way timing has worked out that like that doesn't really seem feasible, and so you get like the next the next best thing, which is like the younger sibling. And I like that like I there's the scene where they do, I think, like they talk it through a plan to find Holly. This is like the tracker and the shotgun casing.
Yeah.
I think that's the plan that like Mike ultimately like unveils after they've like talked through why nothing will work. And because I guess the ultimate reveal is like we can get Derek to a place where Vecna can't see through his eyes, but that doesn't save us from Holly. And so then Mike delivers the tracking plan. And then so it's like, yeah, that like, and that's kind of the reason why there's more kids, right? Like you need this, like, anyway, I don't mind it. I again, but I hear the critiques, but I'm also like, yeah, it's fine.
That's the thing. It's a blank slate. Like I'm not feeling it's negatively impacting anything. I'm just kind of more wondering with her than a lot of the other characters of like, where is this going? And it kind of stinks that like, maybe we'll find out more about this character considering that like now she's going a little undercover now that she has truly discovered the extremity of Mr. What's his power, which like also the Mr. What's it thing, I'd assumed it was Vecna. I didn't think we necessarily needed that slow scrawling of Henry's name on the paper.
That was like, so silly.
Yeah, that's Vecna. Like we know Vecna. He torments children. That's pretty much his MO at this point. So like, yeah, it absolutely is him. We haven't seen him at this point. The whole storyline was Vecna's disappeared for 6 months. We don't know where he is at this point. Like, yes, that's clearly where Vecna is. I will say that, I mean, having her be any sort of conduit both to Vecna's plan, but to mainly bring Max back into the fray, is very fun. I mean, I am a huge sucker, Grace, for a mind palace. And as Max goes through her own expo dump as to what happened in episode 4, Max in episodes 4 are just get along swimmingly.
That's right.
But for her to really talk about the fact that like the weird hellscape that she was kind of taken into in this purgatorial state where initially she was meant to relive like Henry's sordid memories, and then she somehow made her way to this like almost untouchable realm of kind of his own fabrication where like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out more about Vecna's plan. Like, was he planning to take all the kids there? Or is it just Holly? Like, is Holly the most important child to him because she's the first for this big plan?
No, I think so my read is that like Holly is just like the reveal of the episodes is basically like, oh no, Holly is gone. Oh, Holly's one of many kids who are gone. Holly is, I think, as Fable is pointing out, is sort of this conduit to bring Max.
She's the antenna.
Yeah. And I think that's that's great. I actually I like all that actually a fair bit, and like
Yeah.
yeah, he would have brought all of them together in one place, but his plans sort of get foiled. And yeah, Sadie Sink. I guess I said it today early on the Tastemakers. I was like, yeah, the divide between some of these these like kids who got brought on as kids and actors, like Sadie Sink is so good. She's so good. She's gonna have like maybe probably have the best career I think of
Yeah.
any of the kids here. Like she's so good. It's so good to see her back on the show, and it's fun.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's why they give her the most torturous stuff, right? Like Max is pretty much far and away the stuff that they have dumped the most things onto, between like her abusive relationship with her brother, between her guilt over her brother's death, to, being haunted by Vecna, to nearly being killed by Vecna, to being in a coma, to now being trapped in this just nightmare where she's, cannot escape anything. Seems just like, it's one of these things where it's like, well, you're so good that we just have to give you the worst hurdles for you to jump over, but she clears them with ease.
Yeah.
I think the divide, maybe honestly, Grace, might exist with like those who have done Broadway versus those who haven't. Because Sadie Sink, was Annie on Broadway, just did her own run in John Proctor is the villain.
Yeah.
Obviously, she had a role in The Whale as well. And of course, you have Gaten Matarazzo as well, Caleb McLaughlin, all also Broadway stars in their own right. Of course, obviously Dustin and especially Lucas, a lot less content. I do feel bad for Caleb McLaughlin because he has pretty much been made as like the Max surrogate of the season so far.
Yeah.
I think he will have his time to shine, but I feel like the show has kind of like never known what necessarily to do with him. And so I think it's going to happen like whenever Max is able to wake up, whenever they turn that freaking tape around and finally get it start to play again so the portal can open up. That's when he's going to be brought to prominence again.
Yeah. Okay, so super fun to see Max back, and but so I agree. Lucas sort of has gotten, I think, the least to do of anybody. We've kind of talked about most of what I think Mike gets to do, which is like his sister is missing, and he has the plan, and he's also going to like empower Will through the power of to my eyes friendship, not
platonic power.
He likes him. He doesn't like him. Is my read, but that's okay. I love the Dustin stuff. In this, in the Dustin stuff, Dustin sort of empowering. Eddie. I thought this was great. Sort of like and this is classic, like in the episode 1 where it's like, who cares about like the bullies are bullying you. If you fight, like you're actually just giving them too much time, and he can't help himself but like get beat up by them. I just, and then the fact that like for the rest of he's in the Hellfire Club shirt that's like ripped, and his eye, like the makeup that they would have done for him every day. I really enjoy the Dustin stuff for getting. I've had a soft spot for Dustin the whole way through. So I enjoyed this, even if it's like it's not a ton to do, but it's I think it's good character stuff for Dustin.
I agree. I think that, and I think it makes sense as well. Like, yeah, it kind of sucks that Dustin, who has been one of the most jovial comic members of our main group of 4 boys, like is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. But it makes sense. Not only did he lose a close friend, but like the close friend died in his arms. Like that's the first time that Dustin has experienced this. Like, yeah, I guess he watched Billy die, but like he had no connection to Billy. Billy tried to murder them a couple.
This is the guy who told him the stuff he's into is like cool and you can be yourself and you're rat and like just be rat, and then that guy died. Like that's tough.
Yeah, and so he has a very big axe to grind against Vecna, but he is still Dustin at the end of the day. Like once he sort of gets the snot kicked out of him, then he kind of snaps out of it to a certain extent and like becomes the Mr. Wizard that we are used to, running the telemetry, basically becoming part of our usual teenager group, right? And that like we now have Robin in our world and now Dustin in the Upside Down, whereas ordinarily they would have swapped places. Right. And I think it's also fun to dote on, one of the best dynamics in the show, which was Dustin and Steve. And it sucks to see them at odds. Am I saying that I am anxiously waiting for them to be back on the same page? Absolutely. But I don't think it's like unnecessary dramatics. I think Dustin is really in his feels. And I think that as good as Steve Harrington can surprisingly be at like dispensing advice and being a shoulder to cry on, like this is not the position for him,
Yeah, Life will live. So seeing Dustin and Steve fight was heartbreaking, which it is, but like I think it's gonna be okay for the two of them, you know. I mean, or maybe not. It's like super heartbreaking, you know. But like,
No,
I don't
again,
think so either. But
PG-13 show, Grace. It's all gonna be
we'll
fine in the end.
we'll chat about that because I think it's actually quite. I think it's interesting to think about by the end of the show where we are. Although we do have like one more batch and then another episode. But
Yeah,
all right,
we are technically halfway through the season at this point.
yeah, pretty
Maybe
wild.
not in terms of runtime, because I don't know if you saw, but
I know I
the
did
movie's
see.
clocking in at over 2 hours. And I said
Yeah,
movie, that's the finale.
and it is being put in theater. I believe tickets, depending on when you listen to, are on sale already or will be very soon. If you listen to this live, tickets I believe tomorrow.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. I mean, the other like while we're on Steve, I had to say, I mean, like it was like very 80s to do the like we're gonna climb the tower to reach the thing, but I'm like we're still doing like we're
Ah,
kind of fighting over Nancy Wheeler, like we're still, and again, I feel like I'm like being like like I loved all this, and then this thing kind of wasn't good. I really liked this. I like had so much fun, but it's like we're really just doing like Jonathan and Steve are fighting over like are broing out over Nancy Wheeler. Like
that's
I
that,
guess.
that's the thing is like I agree that maybe if you pick through these character things, like there are ones that we definitely do not like, but it's what I said at the very beginning that I think in general it does skew positive. If you kind of add up all of the numbers, it is positive at the end of the day. But this was probably my least favorite storyline out of all the ones that we were given because A, it's tropey AF. B, like I hated it when they were teasing it in season 4. That I think they did a nice job, obviously getting into like why Nancy and Jonathan were drawn to each other in season 1. Season 2, it finally happens thanks to Murray's pervy engagement in it all. And then they like, I'll say they have no idea what to do with those two.
Yeah, what are they gonna?
It is Jim and Pam post wedding, and they
It's
can't settle them with a bunch of kids. So they're like, I guess they're at odds because Jonathan was going to go to college and didn't tell Nancy, and now he wants to propose to her. It would feel more earned if these characters did not feel so waylaid for the past couple of seasons. Like I feel like consistently the Jonathan and Nancy stuff has been the weakest storylines besides the Russia plot for the better half of Stranger Things second half run. And so, yeah, I could absolutely leave this one behind. I am not looking forward to the moment when Jonathan chooses to propose at the worst opportune moment and Nancy will outright refuse him because this is all entirely ridiculous. Like, yeah, I guess as Murray says, like it's lampshading the fact that like they have kind of lost that spark, but I feel like even that moment was kind of unearned because it seemed like a lot of it happened off camera when they moved to California.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, it's funny because for a show that has so many characters, you're like, why don't you just add somebody for Steve to like, kind of like, he can kind of find someone else maybe. Because like, I love the thing of him thinking like it would be Robin and then Robin's gay. Like
Yeah.
I love that, and then I love Steve and Robin being friends. But like, I think you just need, I think for both storylines, you basically just need like some new element to it, and I don't think it just feels like we're wheel spinny. And the one
Wheeler
thing
spinning.
wheeler spinning, and the one thing I give I think this season a lot of credit for, I do think like seeing a show enter into like when they say like this is the final season, I feel like I feel like you can feel them being able to move away from that, of not feeling like they have to spin their wheels. But yet this one certainly does feel like that.
I'm glad they put the kibosh on it almost immediately, where we had an argument between Jonathan and Steve basically being like, all right, let's put it all out in the open. Are you coming for my girl? And then Steve being like, well, you've also been very negligent to your girlfriend. And so it seems like we have largely waved goodbye to it, but it is also a matter of like, why did we have to say hello to it to begin with? Why did we invite it to our house?
Yes, Thanksgiving says maybe he will propose as he is saying goodbye to his life. And for Jonathan, and
feels
people,
very Downton Abbey season 2, where I think what's her name, Daisy, I think marries that guy who's dying from the war.
It's so funny too because I like Fable says that like it's weird how bad the Jonathan Nancy stuff is because Nancy is such a good character. I actually think that like the show has so many good characters to the point where like we've even like gotten rid of some. They're tremendous. And yet, the show is able to like just like build these characters that like feel like they're like perfectly, they fit the world. their 80s, their stereotypes of the 80s, but then they subvert them to some degree. Like Steve Harrington is the best example of that. Like,
Yeah.
you think you know who Steve is, and that's not Steve at all. And it's so good. And yet, yeah, sometimes they just kind of like don't know what to to do with them, which is so fascinating for a show that's like this well done,
Yeah.
Because
Do
I'm
we,
kind of
it feels
yeah,
like we haven't really don't really have anything with Steve either. Like that was sort of again
that's what I'm
kind of
saying.
written off towards the beginning. Do we think Steve is going to have a love interest by the end of the series? This has been his like forlorn heart. He had Nancy, he lost her, he thought he had Robin. That ship very quickly sailed. Now he was sort of after Nancy again. Now that ship has sailed. Like, is there anyone else left for
Well,
Steve Harrington?
Fable in the chat suggests that it will at least be hinted that him and Callie are a thing, which we didn't. We should have done this when we were on
Great. Is
Max.
any warm-blooded heterosexual woman around me? Great. That's my new romance. Steve, any port in a storm, Harrington?
I I don't know. I like the only thing that's like I like the idea of like, well, it's basically the advice that's given to Will, which is like love yourself, which Steve does kind of love himself, and he is great. I don't really know what
Yeah, he's awesome.
he needs. So, I don't know. We didn't really talk that much. Like we talked about Max, and then oh no, 11. Sorry, I meant to be talking about. We haven't talked that much about 11, other than that she kind of like moves side plot, but she's training to get through the upside down, and then she's gonna get there. And this to me is like, also it's because I also think this, like, while I'm watching, I'm like, this is fine. I like that. It's
Yeah.
good. It's not amazing. Basically the like sort of like 11 Hopper stuff.
I agree. I think where it really did go next level for me, albeit for temporarily, was when Hopper opens up about Jane
I
to
agree.
11.
Totally
I think
agree.
David Harbour did a really good job with it. I think it is a good reminder of like why this means so much to him is because he did have a daughter. Like he has gone through that loss.
Yeah,
It's why that relationship was so fun to put together in the first couple of seasons. Season 3 maybe went a little bit too far in the wacky dad, angry teenager
sure.
tropiness of it all, but you could tell the real warmth they have with each other. Sorry, Sarah. Sarah was her name. Jane
Yeah,
is the adopted name of
of
11.
11.
I had it in my head because Hopper had this really fun moment where he said like, "I love you, Jane," as he goes and really reminding her of like, listen, if this is the last time you see me, just remember that to me, you are my daughter and you
Right.
always will be. I thought was incredibly touching. Maybe the fact, maybe not necessarily what happened afterwards, I was as high on because we got this whole montage of like, oh my God, Hopper's going to blow everything up. He's going to sacrifice himself. And I'm like, no, 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 Duffers. We already had one Hopper death fake out. You're
Yeah.
not getting me on a second one. This
Yeah.
man is made of adamantium at this point. He is vibranium clad. This man is one of the safest guys in all of Stranger Things. Hopper lives.
Well, it's funny too because there's like a way you can. I think you could at least try to fake me out, and the one of him like wearing a bomb, I'm like, well, that's not how he's not gonna die like that, Like, there's no way, which is fine. I guess I don't always need it to feel like it's actually like going to happen. Um, we get like she's now being hunted by. Is it just Mrs. K or is it
Dr. K, please. She
Dr.
didn't go to
K?
evil medical school, Grace, to
Which
become Mrs.
Dr. K. Do you know what the 11th letter of the alphabet is? K. I learned. I
It's
saw
K.
this
And I
fact.
also heard that 8 plus 11 plus 1, which Will is channeling the powers of, equals 20.
And that is
Natural 20. That's what they rolled to defeat
Oh,
Vecna in season 4.
yes. Okay. Great.
Grace
I
needs
like.
another long layoff between seasons to get back into D&D.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I thought I use a D24 actually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fun. Great. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
because
I mean, the
so I
power
think
of everyone
that sets
coming
up like
together.
a possible like everyone links their powers up together. I mean, this is part of me. I think from just a plot sake, it's why like in Lost in season 2 to not get too much into Lost. I was kind of like, don't press the button. I want to see what happens when you don't press the button. I was sort of like, yeah, just go to Dr. K. Just work with the military. Stop escaping. I want to see what happens when you go to the military. And I'm glad that we did because we get a major discovery here. And this was, I was smiling from ear to ear because Grace, far and away, the most lambasted part of Stranger Things
Yep.
so far,
Yep.
even though it's part of the second highest rated season on Rotten Tomatoes,
Yep.
is that one episode where
The
they
spin-off.
randomly go to Chicago with Callie, with 8. It was so maligned that they just outright stopped mentioning the character and the storyline at all. 11 stopped looking for the other kids. Maybe we found out the massacre at Hawkins Lab, why that might have been the case. But now she is back, and I am so interested to see where they go with this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think this is fun. I like I like a show that pulls things out of their tool. It's like, yeah, we had this, and we can do this. I talked about Succession being an industry as a show. I felt like that a lot too, where it's like they might not always like just keep bringing things up that happen in the show, but at any point you can sort of pull something out, and it can be fun. I'm kind of excited for this. I don't, other than that, like she also has powers. Like we'll see.
Yeah, I
I
think one of the reasons why people were angry about the episode is not necessarily because it's not a good episode, which it isn't, and especially because it was so jarring and that like this is the first time we were majorly out of Hawkins. Like, why are we taking 11 away from all this stuff? But I think that as well, it's a little bit like, but she also has powers. Like, why are we just kind of leaving that by the wayside? So I'm happy that we're bringing that back in. I'm intrigued to find out like what her story is because seemingly she was kidnapped. I mean, like, is Kay supposed to be a substitute Brenner right now? Does she know Brenner? Was this just like Brenner's sister? And now another, my first name is Kay. My last name is Brenner.
Well, somebody asked that in the chat. Yes, is she actually is Cabe could be a pseudonym. Um, I feel like to some degree, like I guess how boring to just have her basically be Brenner, like new Brenner. So is there something you can do with Kay that is, a little more interesting than that? I do think for one of the things I was going to say a little earlier, and that I decided to save it a little bit. There's a in the former post show recaps Discord. There's a user in there called the Upright Man,
Oh.
and he had a great post for episode 4 that I thought was really good, which is this idea that he has found the last 2 seasons to both be very predictable, but in a way that is very satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
There is a thing in modern shows, which is that it feels like if you can figure it out, we have to subvert that. We can't do what's the most obvious.
Westworld.
That is, the Westworld problem. I was a little worried that was going to be what came of Succession because the creators talked about that, like, we didn't think people would figure it out this much, kind of. And I think there is a sweet spot to like figuring. I think, like, I don't know what the number is, but like probably by a certain episode, like X percentage of people should like be able to figure out the thing that might happen because you should have planted seeds to let that thing happen.
That's exactly it. Yeah. The best twists I've always said are ones that will take you by surprise, but when you realize it in retrospect, you had the clues all along, Mr. Policeman. I think like the Henry 1 Vecna reveal in season 4 is a great example of that. And I also say that tropes exist for a reason because they work. Yes, they might seem rote, they might seem repetitive sometimes, but the reason why they're used time and time again is by and large, they do the trick.
Yeah, he says, I haven't been surprised by the show that much, but in a way that almost makes me appreciate the show more. I'm sick to death of properties getting so obsessed with subverting expectations that they completely abandon everything they've built up. The characters on Stranger Things make sense for the most part. Jonathan and Steve seem like they should have bigger parties than chest thumping and pissing contests. That's an example of ways in which they're not making sense, I think.
I mean, that one guy, military guy, had a pissing contest on the lumpy wall.
If things are predictable, it's because the show cares more about honoring the characters than it does about surprising the audience. And I think that is true about this show, whereas I feel like it doesn't feel like it's the most surprising thing. And I think like the best moment of the season for me is a thing that, like, yeah, if you watched season 1 of this, if you watch like the first episode, you might be able to be like, I bet at the end, like, maybe Will gets powers and like, could like, is like a force to face off against Vecna. Like, that's what we got, and it was super cool and awesome. So like, yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment and feel like so I say that to say like, yeah, what's up with Kay? Because like she could just be like higher up than Brandon. One of my favorite like movie monster things ever is like you kill the big bad evil guy and there's a bigger badder evil guy.
I mean, that was like, literally season 1. It's, oh my god, it's the Demogorgon. Season 2, it's like, oh yeah, there's actually this giant spider creature. And then season
Right.
3, it's like, oh, it's giant spider creature and demo dogs at the same time. It's just, you have to keep kind of amplifying, like any good run D&D campaign, right? You need to scale, as you mentioned before. So I would not be surprised if she was just kind of a stand-in for like generic suit and tie. I'm not sure why the military is set up in the Upside Down. Like, I know they were obviously hunting down 11, but like, are they wanting to utilize her to take down the Upside Down? Because they clearly have Callie, but was that just to utilize her powers to find 11? Like, hopefully we get a bit more explanation now that they've kind of been caught flat-footed. So again, I'm holding reservations about my thoughts on this storyline until we actually figure out what's going on with it.
Yeah, I guess again, this is the thing like that I am the most disserviced by not being able to finish my rewatch. When Brenner dies, is there much like remorse from like I guess like maybe that's a thing that we're missing, and I do think like Kay being a woman, I think potentially is like, could be because it's like Brenner's wife or sister, whatever, or it could be like, is that actually important because it's, a way in which like there'll be some acknowledgement of the things that were done were, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I really honestly don't know, which I was okay. It does feel like so far they have not given us a whole lot to say she's anything else other than, you know, the, one higher up, and or it went deeper at least, in terms of like, yeah, we're in the Upside Down and they're, and they're here. Okay, those like, who am I missing? Who have we not?
But anything with Joyce? I mean, Joyce just has the really big moment that Joyce has is her, moment with Will when he has the reckoning with her of like, you can't be so protective of me. We have to take risks if we want to do these things. And I think her perspective makes a lot of sense. She underwent trauma. Like, this is very, very kind of put off to the side, but like, she did go through a traumatic experience of having her child get kidnapped for a specific period of time and is still feeling the after effects now in more ways than one. So like, it makes sense. This is not just helicopter parenting. There's a reason to have the rotor blades moving because she is afraid of what would happen to him. I think even more so after this. I mean, showing how Joyce Byers can be a badass, though, like her just straight up like standing up and walking to Vecna, like, you
Sick.
knew what this guy was capable of. Now, this is interesting, though, because in a little bit, I want to get into some stuff that was made canon by the stage play, Stranger Things, The First Shadow. And it was mentioned a bit when Max went into Henry's Mind Palace that, like, technically speaking, Joyce and Hopper know Henry Creel.
Yeah, right.
They went to school together. Even after I saw the show, I still don't know how I feel about that. Because Vecna felt like such a ubiquitous outside presence. It does feel a little fan fiction-y to me to be like, and they all went to school together, and then one day Henry turned evil. And we haven't gotten any sort of reaction about like, when it's revealed to Joyce, like, oh, they said Henry, like, I feel like we haven't really connected those dots yet, and I don't know if we will.
Yeah, it's funny because like Hawkins is like small, but not like that small that they all had to like be in school together. It's like that feels. I agree. I don't. It's. I think the media property that's probably done the most of this is Star Wars, where like actually their last name is this, and you're like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, fine. So I mean, yeah, I would. I really. I feel like I like know that the stage play existed, and really have no, because I wasn't going to go see it. I have no indication of what it is and that it was important. But it does seem like there are these potential, canonical connections there, which I do think is interesting. I just love. Joyce as a character. I just love Joyce. I'm like I feel like
we haven't got a lot of Chopper content either. We separated Mike at 11. We separated Joyce and Hopper. They're really robbing us of these romantic interests this season.
Yeah, which probably is so that when we get to the end, like when they're like, together, or as I said, I kind of, a couple of times we've joked to this, but like, what if Jonathan dies? If Jonathan dies, like then you get this like, thing between Jonathan and Nancy. I don't, I don't think very many people are dying, but certainly somebody who's in a couple, I'm kind of like,
Derek, looking at you. Unfortunately, first in, last out, or last
yeah.
in, first out.
I think Joyce is, especially having done like most of a season 1 rewatch. Boy, Joyce is just like an all-time
Oh yeah, I mean, she is again.
joke
I would
maker.
say to a lesser extent, she's a character where they don't necessarily know what to deal with, what to do with her. Like they make her obviously like involved with Hopper. She obviously takes charge when she does the whole Russia plot, but even though she's the main character of that, it's the main character of like arguably one of the worst side plots we've seen on the show, which also does make things a little nerve-wracking in that when the Duffers were teasing Volume 2, they're like, we're going to explore more of Vecna's memories. It's going to be a side story, much like the Russia plot. And it's like, why did you bring up that comparison, Duffers? Ready to just set up our expectations so grandly.
How many episodes have we've had? We've had like 38 is that how many episodes of
I
Stranger
think
Things
so,
we
yeah.
basically had? Imagine the show was like a network drama in like 2002 and we would basically be in the middle of the second season. In terms of episode count. So like it's funny to think of this show as being like, yeah, it's a Netflix show that only gets like 8-9 episodes per season, and yet sometimes there's like like they don't know what to do with Joyce.
Yeah.
Such a silly problem to have, but it is true. Okay, I love Joyce. I really don't know that I have a ton more else to
and
say.
also
about
watch
Joyce,
Winona
though.
Ryder's interview on Hot Ones. It's fantastic.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's all to you, Grace, as well. So I love you responded, okay, like, Grace, you need to do it.
I figured. I'll go watch it, Mike. I'll go watch it. Those are basically, those are characters. Those are people. Those are all the things that happen. So what else? And I guess like, yeah, maybe, stage play more. Do you want to talk more? Basic?
So I want to talk a bit about Stranger Things, The First Shadow, because it also gets into what I think Vecna's plan is. So apologies that we're going to sort of like, we're going to go through another barrier here, another fleshy wall, because there's going to be spoilers about Stranger Things, The First Shadow, because I think it comes into play as to what's going on with Vecna. What does this drawing mean? Why does he need these kids? So spoiler alert, if you don't want to know about the events of the play. Overall, if I want to do like a mini review of Stranger Things, The First Shadow, very fun watch. I would not say that the content itself is like next level Pulitzer Prize for drama winning, but the effects are astounding. It is one of the like best forms of stagecraft I have seen in a long, long time. Just what they have been able to pull off, obviously with all these supernatural computer generated stuff, wizardry from the show proper. They were able to make it happen on the stage. It is legitimately scary and creepy. They do some wild ass stuff that maybe I'll get into after the spoiler break. And the guy who plays Henry Creel, let me look up his name really
McCartney.
quick. Yeah, he is awesome. And when you see what he has to do every night, it's like, good God, how do you live through that? So if you're a Stranger Things fan, especially, because now this might be required reading, definitely go check that out, because hopefully, again, this was enough of a prologue once more to get the licky-loos out of here. Grace, let's talk about the caves, because Max said that when she was running from Vecna, running up that hill, she ran through the walls of this like canyon-esque cave, and Henry couldn't go in there. And it's weird because he created this world. Why did he put the caves there? And the answer lies in Stranger Things, The First Shadow. And it doesn't even lie within the play. This was something that happened before the play. Before Henry moved to Hawkins, he lived in Nevada, where a rogue scientist was doing experiments with a device that he stole from the government. The government at the time was trying to perfect, I believe, like cloaking technology for warships, and they accidentally opened a portal essentially to another world. They call it Dimension X. We colloquially know it as the Upside Down.
Right.
And so this scientist escaped with something that would help, transport him to the Upside Down. Little Henry was exploring the caves one day in Nevada. He had his, if you saw that Holly was like looking through a spyglass in Henry's bedroom, he had a spyglass at that time. He ran into this scientist and they both blipped out into the Upside Down. Not much is known about what happened, but when Henry came back 12 hours later, he acted demonstrably different and his blood type was different. Much like it was sort of talked about with Will proper. And then that leads down the Henry Creel path that we know from the show, how he arrives in Hawkins. He's a little creepo deepo. And they actually showcase how like he gets more and more corrupted by the Mind Flayer. that Vecna is not the big bad of the Upside Down. The Mind Flayer was the first shadow, and it slowly took over Henry's consciousness for him to do these things. It's not that, 11 happened to zap Henry into the Upside Down, and that's how he became who he is. The Mind Flayer, much like Vecna had his tendrils and will for a long time, so did the Mind Flayer into him. And so, all that is to say, the reason why I imagine Henry avoids the cave and fears the cave is because, like, this is where these troubles all began. Had he not gone into the cave, his life would not have gone in this direction.
Right. Wow, super, super interesting. Yeah, I think like 'cause I know some people like there's some folks that are being like, the stage play, like anything that's in the show should be. You shouldn't have to do like go watch something else to the know. I felt
Oh
this
my
way.
God, yes.
I think that there's a thing in I think in season 1 of Severance they released like a book and it had and people were like combing through this like book and people were like, oh, there's so much stuff in it, and I was like a little annoyed. I'm like, well, it's not what you do it in the show first, and then it can be over there. Then if you want to go do it, but whatever. I
No,
think
no,
like
no, no. This point should absolutely be taken. This is such a fucking stupid decision from the Duffers. Like, here's the thing to me. Like, yes, it's not like a crucial reading. I think it
yeah,
certainly helps play into a lot of stuff. I think it's going to be explained on the show. But this reminds me of like going back to your Star Wars analogy. We have like a Grand Admiral Thrawn show up, and it's
right,
like, okay, well, if you read the extended universe books, the context is brought in there. It helps enrich the story. It's not required, but it's a fun reference for people who have done a little bit of extra research. The interesting thing, though, is that yes, the extended universe is different. It's separate from Star Wars proper, but it's easily accessible to everyone in
right,
theory. If you have a
right,
library card, you could find out about this.
right.
Stranger Things is a Broadway show that costs hundreds of dollars. It is
That
incredibly
played in
inaccessible.
2 cities.
That played in it's incredibly inaccessible. I would be surprised if even 1% of the people who watch Stranger Things have seen Stranger Things The First Shadow. This would make so much more sense if in between seasons 4 and 5 they did like a pro, a pro shot, a professional filming of it like we've seen with a lot of theater shows as of late, but to have it be behind a literal paywall, it's just an idiotic thing to do. And I know this is such small potatoes, but it's going to be a pretty meaningful plot point, and it just sucks that so many people are, left out of this, essentially, that they're left out of seeing this. But the Duffers have decided to bring this in a fairly large capacity.
Yeah, to make a bunch of money on Broadway in the West End. But I guess in that sense, like if so few people have seen it, then it probably doesn't matter, and it will be explained in the show, and it'll be fine, right?
It'll be
Like it
fine.
doesn't
Yeah,
really.
it's just the idea of like then like why? Why did you bring that in, or why did you not decide to make
Well,
that information more accessible?
well, the thing I think, right, is that it's the same. It's the same. Like so many of my complaints about Stranger Things are like stuff that like clearly got messed up with like figuring out how to get this all done quicker.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like if you just like make the show in a shorter period of time, then you then can go do the play. But because then they're like we like I don't even like probably like maybe like contracts were like do not that those can't be like canceled, but then they were just like whatever, just do it, just go do. And it's not like just go do it, but you know what I mean, like to some extent, kind of.
I would still, if you are in the area and you have the funds to do so, especially when we find out more about Henry. And I think also there's going to be even more. Again, they say they're going through Henry's memories. We see for a bit of time, Max is like in that high school. What's also interesting is that Henry had a romance with, remember Bob Newby? Remember Sean Astin's lovable fan
Yeah.
favorite role that was mercilessly killed off? He had an adopted sister named Patty that Henry was in a romance with. Like she was his constant. She was the thing that was keeping him from succumbing completely to the darkness until he finally did. So like, will she become canon in the show? I'm not entirely sure. That's the other interesting thing about these sort of like ancillary materials is that technically the story was developed by the Duffers for the play. So I'm intrigued to see like what they pick and choose. But I say people go see it. Again, this is going to be a big spoiler, but it still doesn't ruin anything. They have a whole freaking mind flayer in the show, like staring down from overhead. It's unbelievable.
It'll go into. I mean, it will go into eventually. I guess the other thing is like depending on how expensive, like you know, and
Well,
but
that's the thing, and
like,
also like it's a lot harder to tour that type of show though because you have to
right.
find the venue to house all of these. Again, astounding effects. Things have to be set up so properly to do things like the pyrokinetics,
Mm.
or the use of screens, and they also do some very fun lamp shading, tongue in cheek stuff with Netflix in particular. So like they'd have to really pick and choose the specific venues they're going to.
Uh, I guess it's fine to do this now. I guess we're kind of talking about the Duffer Brothers. The one thing I think is really interesting is that like if this presumably like this will have done well for Netflix again, and it's being like super well received, and it does not mean that they will for sure land the end, like they'll land the plane here. Like the finale could be like super bad. We'll like see. I don't.
It could be super bad. They could bring in Jonah Hill, Michael Cera.
Yeah, they are putting it in theaters. So I feel
Speaking
like
of adults
anyway.
playing teenagers.
Yeah. I You have to think that Netflix will try to figure out what else they're going to do with Stranger Things. And I guess I would have to go. I presume Netflix will continue to be able to do Stranger Things content even when the Duffer Brothers and Upside Down leave for Paramount
Mm.
at some point. And so that's to me is interesting is when like what's the next Netflix Stranger Things, because like I mean in that universe, because like if this again is like such a success, they're gonna try to figure out how to make money from it. They're making a cartoon apparently. So yeah, okay,
Interesting. They
interesting.
can be even more gruesome. I will also say, by the way, like the that image of Vecna sticking his hand through that guy's
So
face
good,
is so good,
so good.
so freaking rough. Okay, so they all that tangent aside, let's talk about Vecna's big evil plan here, because we get it's like scotias of it, right? We figure out that okay, Holly wasn't the kid; she's a kid of many, and he wants to essentially connect them all into like these Matrix-esque gooey columns essentially to form this big device that Will was sketching out. So what I thought was interesting that I saw online was if you look at the shape of the image that Will draws on the wall of the barn, and you go to low-key MVP of the series, Mr. Clark's class with Erica, when he talks about wormholes, looks remarkably similar, no?
Yeah. He's talking about yeah, he's talking about wormholes, right? That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's talking
Mr.
about the
Clark?
fact that you are able to essentially open up an entire universe and have it be easily accessible within like a blink of an eye. And so I think my prevailing theory right now as to what Vecna's big plan is that I think he wants to leave the Upside Down. But
Yeah.
I don't think that means going back to us. I think he wants to open up a third realm. I think he wants to go somewhere else entirely. That he realizes that he has had his reach in the Upside Down. He's now had his reach on Earth, right? Like I think that was part of the will of it all. Was like, okay, I can sort of like have people commit actions through me without them necessarily realizing it. And so I have control there. And so now I can leave and Thanos style, start conquering planet by planet here. I think that is Thanos's big, not the, that is one's, that is Henry's big idea at the end of the day.
So yeah, so this people are yeah, I think that's fun because I think like like what's more like again big bad evil guy than like world domination. What about like universal domination, of like
Mm-hmm.
this isn't the only place out here, I'm going somewhere else, and I'm
Yeah.
also going to conquer that, and that's easier to conquer or whatever. The other yeah, I mean the wormhole stuff is also super time travel-y, and although it feels maybe like super late in the game to be like adding in time travel, it does make there's some
Please, no more CGI to make these people look younger.
well, you're talking about some stuff about like where maybe Henry first sort of like, why won't he go to that place? What could he stop from? Like, I don't think he would want to stop it from happening, but more so like, how does he just make sure that like his plan goes off without a hitch? But I definitely do think like that creates a lot of logistic problems from like the aging of all of these people. So I don't, I, yeah, I, Yeah, I think like the simplest, and again, I kind of feel like to the point we were talking about earlier with the, some of the points about the show. The show is not so much about like the twist that you weren't like. It does feel like things get seeded, and I do just think like the whole world being under, Vecna and beyond being under, you know, oh sorry, the episode and Hawkins. Did I say Vecna?
Yeah,
I meant
that's to me when
Hawkins.
he names Hawkins, like, you're now called New Vecna.
Hawkins, Vecnans. Just like the all of Earth being under his control. Like that's like that's so simple. Like I'm a big bad evil guy.
Yeah.
You definitely could go further than that. I think, if you're talking about like portal wormholes. I like, to me that thing feels like the wormhole thing feels like, yeah, this is how I get from this to this, and then I control all of it. That's like, I think in its most simplest explanation, that's what it
I
feels
mean,
like. But
Fable is making very valid points of the verbs that he uses, which is like he wants to reshape the world. Like,
right,
I think he wants to be a creator. And that to me, maybe he feels like, okay, I did what I did in the Upside Down. It's kind of working in Hawkins, maybe not necessarily. Let me see if I can start over somewhere else and kind of build from ground zero. And I think that's what they're going to prevent. Or maybe it's also this idea of like, if he decides to open this up, things become incredibly unstable and it might destroy the world.
well, I think if it's only working in Hawkins, like, cool, you have one town. That's pretty fun. What if the ending is him being like, I did it, I controlled Hawkins, and like the next town over being like, cool, man, like,
Yeah, it's
fine,
like, you didn't
like,
realize that there's a lot bigger cities than this one.
as somebody who's currently in Canada and down there in America, it seems to be like, pretty. It's like, man, it seems bad, but like, I don't know.
Vecna, living in his liberal bubble, thinks that everything exists in Hawkins and nothing else outside of it.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, like, and again, I don't mean to say, because I think what works about the show is that it's like, it's it's pretty simple. It's harking back to, yeah, like
Yeah.
Spielberg era, like 19, like, and I feel like what's more of that than just like, I'm gonna take over the world with my Demogorgons and the mindful,
That's the thing. Like, even season one, it wasn't like, but what's the Demogorgon's motivation? It's just like he's a spooky, evil humanoid creature with a flowery, jaw-laden face, and he takes boys,
yeah.
and that's the evil guy.
Um, yeah. So and it's just, how do we stop that? We're like this little group of people, and my presumption is that much like a D&D adventure party, it takes all of them coming together to do it. But also in a D&D adventure, like when you play D&D, like somebody gets the
Killed.
big kill. Somebody gets the kill.
Yeah.
Somebody shoots off the fire, somebody, how do you want to do this, in the words of like, Critical Role? Like, somebody does it, so I think somebody will have a big moment, and I feel like, yeah, good. I think that that's 11. I think people, you think that it might be Will based on the end of this episode, but I think that this was kind of Will's moment.
I think Will could set up 11. Like
100%.
Will can maybe like hold Vecna at bay. Maybe they're like negative and positive ions just neutralize each other for 11 to get in, do her usual, hold her hand out, nose bleeding profusely as he gets, dissipated once and for all.
It's gonna be cool when like it's 11 up front doing the thing and her nose is bleeding, and behind her a bunch of other, like, at least, like, like, I thought the
What if they
nosebleed
all
thing
did
was,
it?
oh, super cool. Even if they all do it metaphorically, it's so cool. It's so cool. I thought Will wiping the blood from his nose, that was like super cool. I thought
So
that was
good.
great.
It's such an incredible way to end volume one. Which again, I did enjoy overall. I think when you pick through it, there are definitely elements that are a little subpar or a little questionable. It's like, I'm not sure where we're going with this, but like, it cannot be denied that the 1-2 punch of Callie in the Upside Down and Will having powers is so, so good. They set us up really well for whatever's going to come in the next 3 episodes before we take another break. Definitely a
Just
smaller
a
break,
week.
a
Just a
1
week.
week break before the finale.
Okay. Before I ask you, like, the thing of like, does anybody die? Because I'll ask that, and maybe the chat about. Do you think anybody, like, who's dying before? And like, I mean, Vecna presumably, but like, anybody from our sort of the good team. I was not a D&D fan when I started watching the show, and this is probably I was pretty into D&D the last time this season came out. So these last 2 seasons have really been, I've been in my D&D phase. I'm now being like, but actually, the rule, does it bug you at all, or are you like Duffer Brothers, whatever, you've like, reinvigorated the D&D community, you're one of probably the that and Critical Role to some degree probably have been like the saviors of D&D. Maybe that's as blasphemous to other people, but like, does it bug you when it's like, actually, apparently a cleric can't use Dimension Door, and that like sorcerers didn't really exist until later,
Yeah,
and
that's
actually
that's
he's kind of a
way.
warlock? Does it
Maybe
bug
it's
you?
because like I've also really gone into D&D since Stranger Things premiered, but like that is so ticky tack for me. Like this
I
is
agree.
not the D&D show. Like in fact, they kind of sidelined D&D. One of Will's big points of contention in season 3 was like, why does no one want to sit down and play D&D anymore? The Hellfire Club was a welcome return to it. So like it really isn't that's not the show anymore. Like it was a fun way to welcome it in, and it still is a fun framing device, I think, more than anything. Like when Mike makes, the paints the figure of Holly and gives to her that she kind of uses as a totem when she's in a very weird place in her own sort of wonderland, complete with the blue and white dress. But like, I don't know, I never looked at it as like, but now they are exact analogs of members of a party, and this is who each class is. It's a fun exercise, but I don't think it's meant to be taken literally.
I agree. I think, and for almost all of them, I think you could also say the thing that you and I will know, that I will speak for myself to know that sometimes I get the rules wrong.
Yep.
And Mike is like, whatever. He's older, but like, yeah, maybe he forgot that like clerics can't cast Dimension Door. Like sorcerers not existing. I'm like a little like, and a lot of people are
This is
like,
a show that forgot Will's birthday. I think it's okay if they fudge up they have bigger fish to fry when it comes to inconsistencies.
There is some argument that like actually Will is a warlock because he's like getting his power from Vecna, but like
That's true.
whatever.
Yeah, but
It's
I also
fine.
feel like Will would have had to. Isn't the thing with warlocks that you have to like offer something to that
You make a
evil entity to
pact.
get your power? Yeah.
You make a pact, yeah. But that's
And so
fine.
I guess Will made the pact when he got that thing shoved down his throat when he was 12 years old.
That's right. Okay, anybody sort of on the like any of our heroes dying? Anybody? Literally anybody?
I honestly do not think so. Like, yeah, maybe we had, because I'm thinking about like who have we racked up. I guess we lost Barb, Bob, very
Bob,
similar.
Eddie, Billy.
Got the 3 Bs. We had I guess here's the big thing. Like, if we didn't lose Karen and Ted Wheeler here, we're not going to lose them. Like,
That's
it'd be
so
weird
true.
to keep them alive. And I will say, like, God, that was gruesome. Holy moly. I was surprised they went that far to like just show that it showed how intense it was from the start, that they end the first episode into the second episode with like the Demogorgons coming in and truly showing like in the moment you're like, oh God, no one has plot armor. These poor kids just lost both their parents. It ends up not being the case. I would not be surprised if Ted Wheeler just ended up in a coma forevermore because he was kind of a walking coma when he was still living and breathing. But like, God, that was just literally gutting. They were gutted from head to toe, and yet Karen Wheeler was able to survive after fighting off a Demogorgon with a broken wine bottle.
Yeah. I also don't think anybody's dying. And I think kind of like I don't think it makes sense to have I think the most likely hero to die is honestly the one that I think like they're just never gonna do it, which is 11. Like
Yeah.
11 going through all that she went through and then having like and like
we already kind of did the
she,
death fake out there, right? At the end of season 1, where
yeah,
she fights off the Demogorgon and she disappears. Now, granted, at the end of season
right.
1, they were leaving the echoes out to be like, she could still be alive. But it would feel kind of weird if we got the exact same ending here, but it's for reals this time.
Yeah, I don't. So many of the characters who you think could maybe even die have fake died. So then they're like, Hopper's not gonna die. I don't think Max would die.
No.
I don't think Mike would die. I don't think will die. I don't think you would kill either Dustin or Luke. Like nobody. I don't think anybody's gonna die. So I think they all live in Henry dies. Dr. K maybe dies. But
Dr. K is definitely going to die, yeah.
Well, I think there's a world where there's a little bit of like, oh, actually, like, I think I don't want to call it redemption, but I think there's like, I don't know. Steve, I don't think Steve dies. I don't think.
Shout out Antonio Mazzaro.
I don't. Oh, Antonio Mazzaro believes
he's the one who suggested Steve. He's going for the jugular right now. I mean, yeah, killing Steve would be tough. I don't want Dustin to lose like another brotherly figure. Like, hasn't this man been through enough? Not nearly as much as Max, but
yeah, because Eddie died. I don't think. Yeah, like I just don't think anybody. I don't think anybody really dies. Not from the good team. I don't
No,
think. Not from the
which is
heroes.
weird because again, this is a huge cast. You know, if they
Oh,
walked into a restaurant, they could like buy. You'd have to essentially like tell everyone else to go home so they could all sit and enjoy a meal together. That's how big they are.
my favorite is there was a scene where I'm like, whoa, like everybody's here, and it was like, I think it's a planning scene, and then immediately cuts. I'm like, oh no, Hopper and 11. Like there's
Yeah,
so many people on the
when
show.
Robin was transmitting the message and everyone was copying down, I was like, no, they still have to be. It's separate locations. We'll see.
Okay.
I think we will get. It will only be in the finale where we will have everyone in the same place at the same time.
Well, yeah, we'll go Super Avengers Endgame, I think, in a
Yeah.
moment like that, where they're all like kind of on the
Well, maybe that's
battlefield
why
to some
Vector wants
degree.
to open up a portal so all the cast members can come in.
um, the other thing I was gonna say is like, oh, maybe like Nancy Wheeler, she's the cook. Like, could someone die and there's like a way to revivify, But like
Mm.
but the spell, it's Dimension Door. Like, so like she's got a Dimension Door somebody. That's like there's gonna be a teleportation via Holly at some point. But like, I don't know. Someone could die and be brought. Yeah, I don't know. But like nobody really seen like with like healing powers, right?
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
and because I even like Eddie, as much as I instantly loved him, Josh and I were talking all the time about like Eddie is Deady. Like we had a feeling that this would be the character introduced to be this main stirring point of the season, that he becomes the big proxy for a lot of this Vecna stuff. But we felt like he was probably not going to be long for this world, and he would be utilized as a heartbreaking death towards the end. That at least one character would carry on saying we're doing it for Eddie. So it doesn't really feel like there's anyone who fits that bill, but I'd be happy to be surprised.
The closest I think we could get to a hero dying is probably Murray.
Yeah, I mean Murray has a little bit of like he's got a little bit of Rasputin in him, and it's not just the beard. And that like this man seemingly never dies, despite how much of like a high profile criminal he is. He's was not visible for what it's worth at the end of Volume 1. Like for all we know, he really just crashed the truck and just got devoured by the Demogorgons.
Listen, I the one thing I will say is like I don't think anybody needs to die, and I really don't see the world where they do. I think if a death happens, like and there is the cliffhanger before the end, like ending on it everyone would talk about it. This is the thing that I feel like this is about as close as we've gotten to monoculture, where I really did feel like everybody was like rewatching some Stranger Things. Everyone was ready for Stranger Things. The day it came out, there's a doctor who I at my work, and I like walked by him and I was like, "Oh, sorry, you're on a call?" He goes, "No, watch the Stranger Things." He lifted up his phone. He was watching it on his phone. I feel like everybody was watching Stranger Things, so it has been very fun, and I thought it sort of like lived up to the hype to a degree. So, Mike, I would be very happy to be chatting with you in
Yes.
about a monthish. Well, the drop there to do like the 3 and the 1 might
Yeah,
not be feasible,
the
but
one.
we might.
I think what we could do is, there is that weird, much like Max's current state purgatorial period between Christmas and New Year's, where everyone's like, I don't know what to do with myself. I think we could definitely get together to do another one of these, like the Monday before the
Yeah,
finale comes out. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to do it. I very much missed the opportunity to get to talk Stranger Things again. Obviously, as the runtime is an indication, I have a lot of thoughts. I think
me
a
too.
lot of people do. There's a lot of expectations going into this final season, considering it's the final season, considering how important this show was and is. And so, again, I'm leaving a lot up in the air because I want to see how it pays off. That's not usual for Stranger Things, considering that up until season 4, it was getting released all at once. We got to see the immediate payoff. We're not doing that here. And it allows us to kind of lovingly hang in the balance like we usually do on a weekly show, to just speculate about, is the thing I like going to end well? Is the thing I don't like going to pay off in the end? It's a lot of exciting prospects.
Hey, Netflix, I know you're probably listening. You could just drop them weekly. You could do that. If for shows moving forward, you could just drop them. Nobody minds you not being attached to the binge dropping. Some shows should drop in a binge. Some should actually drop in a binge.
Well, did you hear? I believe the Duffers wanted to release this weekly, and Netflix said no.
I thought Taryn said that today, and then Taryn thought that he maybe had saw a fact check. The Duff brothers came out and said, "We didn't say that," but
Okay.
that doesn't mean. I got caught in a. I got caught today realizing that a discussing films parody account. Did you see the John Chu forgot to color grade Wicked? Did you see that?
Yes, I've seen
I fell for that, and apparently John Chu did as well. He fell for his own clickbait.
He was like, "What? What did I? Oh no!"
He replied, "No, he replied, that's clickbait." Not realizing it was like a fake, basically the Onion film account. Anyway, they could Netflix. You could just drop some of your big shows weekly, but alas. Mike, this was so fun. I'm so
This
excited
is
to chat more.
great.
There's more to come, more Stranger Things. In the
Yes.
meantime, what else you got going on? Where can people find you?
People can find me at a Mike Bloom type. I'm chiefly talking about a lot of reality TV here while you're holding down the fort on the scripted side, Survivor, Amazing Race, the occasional reality flash. If there's any big piece of reality TV news, either from fake discussing film accounts or otherwise. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. Hope nobody roasts us entirely in the comments like a flamethrower to said aforementioned fleshy wall.
Will be great. Yeah, Tara and I doing the Tastemakers here on RHAP. We know scripted TV. We talked a little bit of Stranger Things today. Taryn caught up on a lot of stuff. He got a new TV and he watched a lot of content. So I thought it was a very fun pod with him today. I'm doing This Century in Cinema, counting on the New York Times top 100 films of the 21st century, and I'm writing over on Popeyes, doing some Survivor recaps myself. But I thought I mean, I know this is Survivor. I thought best episode of the season, maybe last episode.
I think so. I mean, granted, again, when we talk about where we put our expectations,
Yeah.
bit of a lower bar comparatively, but yeah, I had a great time. Did a fun B&B with Shannon as well. We did a little bit of a crossover. We brought the upside down a bit into I think Leon and I are much more the upside down, and Shannon is much more the prim and proper real world of Hawkins. So yeah, happy to make that's the thing. Do we expect any more like outright 80s references, Grace? I mean, I loved bringing Fernando in to serve as the background music during that Demogorgon fight. But
I thought the soundtrack this season has been
it's always
really
so
good.
But we're not. You don't think we're getting any more like new Coke advertisements, right?
We had didn't I see a classic Coke this in this? I really noticed the Coke product place. I believe when Will gets and it's classic. It's Coke Classic. I think he gets.
Oh yeah, I think at the hospital, I think Mike gets a Coke Classic or something. Maybe something like that.
Yeah. See, I do love 80s content, but I am a 90s baby, so I don't know if I'm the person to.
We need a 90s version of Stranger Things. They should have done a Mad Men and just had the kids be at the age they are in real life, but now have it take place in like 1995.
Be great. That'd be fantastic. And last week, speaking of Shannon joined me for a Wicked for Good recap, which I then heard you did go see. You've seen it, right, Mike?
I have seen it. The color grading wasn't so sure about.
I didn't even notice that stuff, but I thought, I feel like all of us have a lot of the same opinions about Wicked for Good.
Yeah, from what I shared with Shannon, I think she and I were very much on the same page, and what I heard, you were very much on the same page with her. So we're all in the Grimmery. We're all in the same book right now.
That's right. Okay, this has been our Stranger Things season 5 volume 1 recap. I'm sure we'll have more Stranger Things coverage in a bit. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Until then, bye-bye.